Let's go.
Let's go. Oh, no.
Do you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you.
Next one.
I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party. Don't say sorry. You don't need to do that. You don't need to apologize. It's a fucked up female habit. You don't need to be sorry for anything ever.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I don't have rage issues!
I have nothing to prove to you.
When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Citizen Dame, the podcast where we don't kick animals on accident ever. Like, it's very difficult to do. That's a horrible thing to say, actually. We don't actually. So
if we do, it is accidental.
It is accidental. Even though they think that we've murdered them, we don't mean to do it. Anyways, I'm Lauren Humphries Brooks, and with me, as always, is Karen Peterson. Hello, Karen.
Hello. This episode brought to you by my cat's vet, apparently.
Yes. I introduced Karen to the Miette meme after having a discussion about her kittens. And it's true. Anyone who's ever had a cat and has seen that meme is just like, yep, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I've adopted two. They are 12 and a half weeks old. And so they're still little. And I put bells on them so that I would always know where they are. Except for it's impossible to always know where a cat is because those things are so dang stealthy. So even with bells on, they will still just appear at my feet right when I'm about to move. So
cats have a special talent with getting directly under your feet. Not like when you're actually trying to walk somewhere, when you're about to get up or something, that they know, they sense it, and they're like, I must get in front of her feet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So yes, we are back. We had a little break there, but we have returned, and this month we decided to have fun because the world is crazy enough as it is. Although this is kind of just as crazy in its own way. So we decided to have fun this month and talk about bad films that we just love, and specifically bad action movies. And so we're going to be bringing you some truly terrible films that are also just delightful and just so much fun, and that we loved, that we love, that we have fond memories of, things like that. And we would also like to know, what are some of your favorite terrible action movies?
Mm-hmm.
This could be anything, whatever you classify as being just bad but really enjoyable to watch.
Oh, exactly. And I love the fact that you actually I'm introducing you to my two picks. We've each chosen two for this month, and I put it out on social media so you can see what we're going to be talking about. But I love the fact that you haven't even seen either of mine. And I get to introduce you to the joy of Hotel Artemis and Replicas, a movie that I have been talking about for literally years.
Yeah, I do. Replicas, you have been talking about Replicas for years, and I've heard, and every once in a while you'll mention it, and I'll be like, oh, I should probably watch that at some point, and then I don't. So yes, I'm very excited about Replicas. I am very excited. I don't know what to feel about Hotel Artemis because I just vaguely remember when it came out, and that's pretty much it.
The reason that I chose it for us is specifically because Jeff Goldblum is in it. That's for you.
I gotta say, Jeff Goldblum has done some bad movies. I've seen a lot of Jeff Goldblum's films, and he has done some bad films. So done some great ones too, as we know. But yeah. Yeah. I will say Hotel Artemis might be a little bit of an outlier here because I personally don't think it's a bad movie. I do think it fits in with this category and with this vibe that we're going for this month, but I do think out of the four, it's going to be the best one. Well, see, okay, so here's the thing. So the other film that I chose for this month is Jupiter Ascending, which is an insane film by any possible measure. And yeah, like I don't, when you really just like, is this a bad movie? It's like, well, it's campy, right? It's ridiculous. But it also, is it bad? Like, I think that that's true for pretty much every bad movie that we, are talking about, actually. It's like, is this actually a bad film, or is it just like, something that we're not used to? If you enjoy something, is it really bad? I think,
is it, well, and also I would say, is it accomplishing what it's accomplished, and does it do that successfully? When I think of really bad movies, I think of movies like The Room, that try the Tommy Wiseau film, that try so hard to be deep and meaningful and just fail at every level. And and to me that's a truly bad movie. Well, but if it's accomplishing what it sets out to do in a campy way, then is it really bad?
Well, and that's the thing. It's a question of whether or not a film is self-aware, right? Yeah. Is it aware of its campiness and aware of its sort of extremity, aware of the fact that it is bad taste? So a lot of people talk about, John Waters films are these bad movies? No, they're not. They're very technically accomplished, right? But they're supposed to be campy. They're supposed to be extreme. They're supposed to like challenge the concept of taste. That's one of the things that camp does. And sometimes camp is deliberate. So John Waters, most of his films are deliberately like that. He has a project to do that. There are other films that, less so. So films like Reefer Madness, right, which is a camp classic. But the original Reefer Madness from like the 1940s. But because it's so extreme, it's such a ridiculous representation of like drug culture and marijuana and everything. It's funny and it's campy, but it's 100% deadly serious. It is being released as like a public service announcement, basically. And you get a lot of films from that era. A lot of the films that were covered by like MST3K, a lot of those films are not self-consciously campy. They're not self-consciously bad. They are just bad. And it's us and the way that we approach them that kind of gives them that quality. So I think that there's actually a question definitely about, at least the two films that I've picked, about the one that we're going to talk about today and about Jupiter Ascending. There is a question of like, what's the actual intention here? And to be totally honest, especially with this film today, I have no idea. I don't know. But I love it. So yeah. Well, so go on. Yeah.
Well, no, you go ahead and transition, then I'll say something about this era of filmmaking.
So the film that we're going to talk about today is the 2004 monster movie classic, Van Helsing, starring Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale, Richard Roxburgh, what's his name? David
Doulis.
David Wenham.
Oh, Wenham.
Yeah.
Doulis. That's a totally different guy.
Yeah, Schuller Helmsley, Will Kemp. So this is quite a film. So this is like 2004. This is coming sort of on the heels of Universal sort of trying to reinvigorate some of their old monster movie franchises.
Yeah, they've had a few iterations of that.
Yeah, and so we had like, years before this, in like 1992, we had Francis Ford Coppola's version of Dracula. There's also like The Mummy. The Mummy films had become very popular, and this was kind of supposed to be in that vein. And it's very much referencing and making use of some of the older like Universal films where you have like multi-monsters, right? So you've got Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, and a film that we've talked about before, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, right? Where you've got all of these different kind of classic monsters incorporated with a new adventure, and they're like interacting with each other and stuff like that. So that's what Van Helsing is trying to do. Whether or not it's successful is a question. So Karen, before we go on, what did you want to say about this sort of era of these kinds of films, like this?
Well, first of all, this is directed by Stephen Sommers. He wrote and directed it, and he had done The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. Like he directed that movie.
Mhm.
And he he also did G.I. Joe a couple years after this, which wasn't great. But he was so successful with The Mummy, which is also kind of campy, the Brendan Fraser one. But it's funny and became this monster hit. And so he actually came back and did The Mummy Returns as well. And so it honestly, it feels kind of logical. I could see why they would hire him to write and direct this movie that brings together Jekyll and Hyde. It brings together the Wolfman. It brings, all these, Dracula story, like all the Universal monsters into one movie under this character of Van Helsing, who is played by Hugh Jackman, who at this point had really, like, he had done some stuff in Australia. Our two main, like, the hero and the villain of this story are played by Hugh Jackman and Richard Roxburgh, both who had done like a lot of small things in Australia, but recently had their breakout roles. So obviously for Jackman, it was X-Men, and that really just launched him into global, superstardom.
Yeah.
And then for Richard Roxburgh, he had done Mission Impossible 2, and he had done Moulin Rouge, and so he was kind of on the rise too as sort of the villain du jour. And so you put these two together, and then you have Kate Beckinsale, who also was just in this real heyday as well, and so you put them together in this movie at a time where the movies were, CGI had just come through kind of a new evolution. So in the early 90s was when they first started really using it with movies like T2 and Jurassic Park. And then that just grew throughout the 90s, but they were still using a lot of practical effects blended with the CGI. And by the time you get into the early 2000s, now movies are going full green screen, full CGI, no more practical effects. It was sort of this evolution. And so even just in the year 2004, when Van Helsing came out, it was in the top 20 films for the year as far as grossing. But some of the other films that year that were also in the top 20, you had Spider-Man 2, which a lot of people consider the best of the originals of that Spider-Man trilogy. But then you also have The Day After Tomorrow, super cheesy, gigantic CGI that looks really questionable at best. I remember the stories about those wolves. You have National Treasure, which also had some good to great to also questionable CGI. I, Robot, Troy, A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Village, The Aviator. I really like The Aviator, but a lot of people had a lot of complaints about that film. And so this is just kind of the era that these sort of big budget movies were in, where the technology hadn't really caught up to making these look realistic. And so I think a lot of filmmakers were kind of leaning into the way that this still looked more fantasy. And that's where I think Van Helsing really, where it really works in Van Helsing is because of the fact that it's this high fantasy concept, very, very make-believe. And so they just make use of the technology that they have and the cheesiness of it to make this movie that is kind of questionable, but really fun.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And also actually just to piggyback on what you're saying in terms of the genre trends that are going on here, this is also just thinking about like the vampire movie, the monster movie, et cetera, in this era of monster movie making. So as you said, we have The Mummy, which is hugely successful. And then you've also got a number of films coming out within the same, like very, very close to one another. The Blade trilogy had started, I think it's like 1998, 1999, right? And Blade 2 came out in 2002. You had Queen of the Damned, which came out, I think, in 2003. No, 2002. And
yeah, also 2002.
And also Underworld, starring Kate Beckinsale, came out in 2003. So you've got this sort of, definitely there is a developing pattern here. The other thing that came out, and this was if I remember correctly, it was definitely critically panned and a big failure, was the film League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is based on a comic book franchise, and was is similar to Van Helsing in the sense that that kind of big budget, a number of different stars, and also like with this pairing up of all of these different literary characters into this one sort of franchise, right? You've got Alan Quatermain and Dorian Gray and characters like that. So this is very much like it's definitely in keeping. Like, I remember when this film came out, because I was, let's say, 16, 17 years old when this film came out. And I saw it, and it was one of the weirdest experiences for me, because I saw it and I was like, this is a terrible movie. And then I saw it 3 more times. I think I saw this 3 times in the theater, and then I owned the DVD. I bought the DVD when it came out. I took friends to see it. One of my very good friends that I was actually chatting about this with the other day, and she was like, oh yeah, like the 90% of my enjoyment of that film was Kate Beckinsale. And the other 10% was the camp. But there's like this like Kate Beckinsale, but also the queer coding of Kate Beckinsale and the like vampire brides. And it is incredibly campy. And I do feel like that this is a film that everyone in it is in a different movie.
Yes.
Where they're not quite certain what they're supposed to be doing, whether or not they're supposed to be taking this seriously, how to take this seriously. And like whether this is more like, and by serious, I mean more in the vein of The Mummy, right? Where it is, you've got good performances, you've got real peril and tension and narrative tension, things like that. But there are also a lot of jokes, and it's also funny, and it's this kind of romp, Indiana Jones romp, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Van Helsing like can't decide. It can't decide whether it's this silly, campy romp with like, oh, there's Dracula and there's Frankenstein and there's the Wolfman and all that. Or if it's like a little bit more serious, like edging towards that more serious kind of graphic novel depiction. Like, is the peril real? Is it not real? Is it something we should be concerned about? What is going on with the accents? Like, so it turns into this sort of mishmash of things that I find ridiculously enjoyable, in part because it's so incoherent. Like, I do think that particularly Hugh Jackman is taking things way more seriously than anyone else on screen. And as a result, he's like this, it's like, no, I've got to act here. And Richard Roxburgh is like, I have the most insane accent you will ever hear. I am going to scream every single line. You are not going to be able to tell like what I'm doing most of the time. And I love that about him. So yeah, this is very much a film of its time, I think, in a lot of ways. It was fairly successful. Like, as you said, it got critically panned, but it made back more than its budget. It did really well, like kind of across the board. So it's one of those films you're like, how in the name of God did this happen, basically?
Yeah. My experience watching this the first time, I went with a friend. We both were like, ooh, Hugh Jackman. And it's so funny because I have these like certain times where I look back and I think, why was I so sure I was straight? And this movie with Kate Beckinsale is one of them.
True. It's true.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a different time. But no, I remember going to see this with a good friend of mine, and she loved it so much. And she was like, this movie is awesome. And I was like, what are you talking about? That was horrible. And I hated it. And I did not go watch it again 2 more times while it was still in the theater. It was a very long time before I begrudgingly revisited it, and several years later. And when I watched it again, I was like, this isn't very good. But dang it, it really is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that you say, which are accidental. And this is where it comes back, I think, into the question of like, is a movie bad if it's doing what it's trying to do? Well, I think that part of the question with Van Helsing is it doing what it's trying to do? And I think to some extent, yes, it is being this like funny, silly monster movie. But also to another extent, it's so earnest in certain ways.
Yeah.
And that is where it can't really pull it off. And yeah, the fact that, I mean, this supposed Transylvanian accent sounds different out of every mouth. And then yeah, you have David Wenham as this friar, and he's the funny one, like he's the comic relief who's always making these random comments and jokes and things, but he's the only one that's being funny. Everyone else is so serious. Well, besides Richard Roxburgh, who also he doesn't, it's not that he takes his role as Dracula too seriously, but it's like his version of taking it seriously is so different from Hugh's and
Exactly,
so different from Kate's that it's just, yeah, I completely agree with you. They are not all in the same movie.
That's exactly it. They are all in different films, but they're somehow in the same film and they're having to interact with each other. And I do think that they don't really know what this is supposed to be. Right. And I think that that's part of it. There's not like a unifying idea behind it, which makes the film in itself incoherent, but also makes it really entertaining.
Yes.
And so let's start at the beginning, because the beginning really should set the tone for it. And yet it does. And yet somehow it doesn't.
Yes.
Because we get this like black and white monster movie opening with like lightning and thunder, and it's alive. It's the creation of the Frankenstein monster.
Yeah. It's like the big Frankenstein scene with the whole crowd outside, but they're also in Transylvania.
Yeah, the mob is coming to burn down the castle to kill Dr. Frankenstein, and it's revealed that that Frankenstein is like creating this monster with the help of Dracula and his 3 brides, right?
Yes.
Who we will get to in a minute because I have things to say. But so with the help of Dracula, who's like been financing all of this, and Frankenstein is very surprised that Dracula is bad. And you just kind of go like, I think even Dracula's like, did you really not get that I was doing something evil here? Like, right. I'm Dracula. And that like Dracula wants the Frankenstein monster for something. It's not clear what yet. And the monster escapes, and we get like them fleeing from the mob. We get the whole windmill scene, which we would know from the ending of the original Frankenstein, the beginning of Bride of Frankenstein. 1930. And Frankenstein dies, and the monster like falls into the sort of fiery chasm. And Dracula and his brides who are always very upset, are like, okay, fuck, like, all right, we got to figure this out. And that's kind of it. And so the action then picks up 1 year later, right? But so we have this really over the top, obviously like referential opening, with all of these, we're kind of introducing all of these various, monsters, and we're kind of setting up the entire plot, but it's also so obviously intended to be funny and campy and extreme, right? And then we get this like scene where we're introduced to Van Helsing, and he is going after Mr. Hyde in London. And it's like this quippy, like fight scene. It's very much like referential to something more closer to the Mummy, or like, an action movie or a superhero movie. And that's where you begin to get thrown off by what exactly this film is up to, or wants to be up to, because then we get him we find out that Van Helsing is like this monster hunter who's a member of the secret Vatican like group that is not just run by the Vatican, it's run by like all of the major world religions to hunt down and destroy these monsters. we've got one of my favorite characters, who I don't know what his actual name is, but to me, he will forever be Father Exposition, because he shows up to explain everything to us. Just like, by the way, you know that you have lost your memory, Van Helsing, and this is the only way. Like, he tells us Van Helsing's backstory, how he became a monster hunter, what the whole situation with Dracula is, all of this shit. Within like 5 minutes, I'm like, he's just giving the exposition. We're literally just being told what's happening.
Yep.
And it's just like, I think that Van Helsing already knows this. My editor like feeling comes in, and I'm just like, Van Helsing already knows all this. Why are you saying this? Stop it.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of, it's ridiculous. Like, it's funny, and we get the sort of, your mission should you choose to accept it kind of thing. We get James Bond references where he's walking through this like a back room of the Vatican, and like seeing all these things that are like all of these different devices, these different steampunk devices. Like, the fucking David Wenham character introduces a device like, oh, you're gonna go hunt vampires, that's really cool. By the way, I have this device that is like capable of producing a light the strength of the sun. I don't know what this could possibly be for, and maybe it'll come in useful sometime. And I'm sitting there going like, you're hunting fucking vampires. You get, what is one of the things we all know about vampires? It's just maddening. It is maddening to watch this, because on the one hand, I'm like, this is so stupid, but I'm so entertained.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's my rant about the beginning of Van Helsing.
That's true. We're just still in the beginning.
It's the first 15 minutes. That's the first 15 minutes of this fucking movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It did take me a while, though. I did not start out loving it. That's for sure. But I can't decide if this is Sommers who accidentally made The Mummy really good, or if he was trying to ensure that he wouldn't get stuck just doing Universal monster movies.
Yeah, I do think that, I think Sommers is definitely trying to pay homage to these older films.
Yeah.
And actually, so I mentioned some of these kind of multi-monster movies, right? Which we all, if we haven't seen them, we all know about them. But one of the things with those multi-monster movies is that they were increasingly desperate attempts by Universal to continue to make money off of these kind of legacy monsters. And they are known for being among the worst of the Universal monster films. Like, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula are like, that's when Universal monsters were beginning to kind of fall out of favor. People weren't going to see them. You're not bringing back like Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, etc. And so after a while, like, these films were just not as popular anymore. And it's funny that is what Sommers is doing with this movie, right? We've got, so we were introduced to Dracula, we're introduced to the Frankenstein monster, we're introduced to the Wolfman, right? And like this monster hunter who is going to go after them. And the whole point of what Van Helsing is supposed to do is he's got to hunt Dracula and protect this one family who vowed to destroy Dracula. Otherwise they would never get into heaven. And they're down to their last two, like, people. Anna Valarious and her brother, played by Will Camp, and they're like, basically like, you've got to go and protect these two, because if they die, that's it. I don't know what that it is, because Dracula's still going to be around, but I guess the idea is like, we've got to be certain that their family gets into heaven or something like that. Right. I don't know.
Which makes the end so fun.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like the setup is clear. Like, we know what's going on, right? But it's stupid.
It's
It's
so stupid.
so stupid. And then we're like introduced to, I think his name is Vulcan, and Anna, and they're like trying to trap a werewolf that is like Dracula's minion. And Valken winds up getting like knocked, like he gets bit and thrown into the water. And Anna's like in tears and everything. But we meet Anna, like it is the most ridiculous character introduction I have ever seen. And I love it. I know it's coming. I'm like, yes, yes, Kate Beckinsale. You like, let's have a full body pan up where you're like spinning around in slow motion and your hair is flying everywhere and you're wearing the most ridiculous and period inappropriate corset in the world and your boobs are just like right up into your eyes. Like, let's do this. Yes. It's and that's just emblematic of the entire film. On the one hand, it's like, we're going to be really fucking serious about this. We've got to fight these monsters, and we've got to protect this family. We're going to have this back and forth between Anna and Van Helsing, and then it's like just the dumbest shit at the same time, and it's really hard to parse out.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and that's what makes this such a tricky movie to talk about, but also so fun to talk about. I was watching this, I started it on Thursday, but I was so tired I wanted to give it my appropriate amount of attention. So I finished it last night. We're recording this on Saturday. And every time she's on screen, I'm like, why is this, what did they do to her? What is this corset? What is up with her hair? Like all of this. And yet that's where you go, oh yeah, no, they're making this movie for boys. And
Well,
it's this also, by the way, I just want to mention, I had said that I wasn't sure if Stephen Sommers was just trying to make sure he never made another movie, or if he was being or like another monster movie, or if he was being really serious about this. And by the way, this was supposed to be the start of a new franchise. They intended for Hugh Jackman to just be in all these Van Helsing movies, but the reviews were so bad that it got scrapped.
Well, yeah. and yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It does feel like the intention is for this to be sort of, they say, the start of a franchise. And what's, yeah, it's like, it's just hard to talk about almost. It's like, what is going on here? I was going to say about Kate Beckinsale, but so like Kate Beckinsale at this point is, like I said, she'd been in Underworld, right? So she was already kind of in this genre, and her like presence in this film is it's very referential in a lot of ways, actually, to stuff like the Hammer Studios films, which are boobs and blood a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. But it has that aspect to it, and there's that extremity that it's not concealed at all, so it's funny. Actually, watching some of the fight scenes, I was reminded of my friend who went to see this movie with me and who really loved it as well. But she was really into Xena. And some of the fight scenes, I'm not saying that this is exactly like Xena, but it has that campy element to it. Mm-hmm. That, like, I'm gonna do a backflip off of the post, and then I'm gonna hang off of the flying vampire woman, and then I'm gonna fall into a well, but I survived. Or, there's like all of these things. They're just like, that's not something that you can do, right?
Yeah.
But there is like a degree almost of self-awareness that this is silly, right? And similar in that sense to like some of the Hammer films. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you get that particularly with like the Kate Beckinsale character, whose accent is completely undefinable. They're supposedly like on the far side of Romania, but I would be really insulted if I was Romanian. Like, yes. Like, just like, it's a cursed land full of horror. Like, wow, okay. But yeah, apparently, like, Castle Frankenstein is not that far away, and nor is Dracula's lair. Although I do remember watching this, I was just like, we know where Dracula's lair is that massive fucking castle on the hill, but that's actually Castle Frankenstein. Of course, then again, it's like, oh no, Castle Frankenstein has been abandoned for an entire year. And you're like, but would that not be the place to look for your villainous, like your villainous monster who for some reason is obsessed with Frankenstein's creation? Wouldn't that be somewhere you might look?
I mean, maybe. Yeah.
Let's talk about Richard Roxburgh and his brides.
Okay.
Because honestly, this is my favorite part of the film. Dracula and his brides. He's got 3 brides, one of whom, by the way, is played by, let me get her name right. I think her name is Sylvia Colaco. She plays Verona, the brunette. Her and Richard Roxburgh are actually married. They've got 3 kids together. They met on the set of this film. So yeah, which I just find very entertaining. But yeah, so he's got 3 brides. He's got a blonde, brunette, and a redhead. They all have different accents. They're all apparently from different places. That's kind of the implication. And they the extremity of Roxburgh's performance in this is something that I really enjoy, because I feel that if you're gonna do a campy Dracula movie, you need to go like whole hog like that. You need to have the most ridiculous accent. You need to be like really supremely villainous and not really give a shit. Just be like, this is what I want to do because I'm evil. Like that's what Dracula is in this kind of a story. Dracula is the ultimate monster, right?
Yeah.
And I just love how extreme the vampires are and how funny they are, because when they have these this sort of declaration of let me talk about my villainous plan, and things like that. Like, I don't think Roxburgh ever stops shouting. Like, he shouts half of his lines at least.
Yeah.
And his brides are like, don't you love us? It's just like, of course I love you, but and then at one point he's just like, no, I have no heart. It's just like there's not quite a mockery of the character, but it is that kind of extreme emotional kind of gothic element to it that is very funny and again very entertaining to watch. The screen is like lights up when the 4 of them are on screen. And it does play also with one of my favorite aspects of the vampire, which is the crazy sexual ambiguity, where they're kind of everything all at once. They're gay, they're straight, they're pan, they're poly, they're bi, they're like, yeah, vampires are basically representative of every sexuality all at the same time. They're like omnisexual. And particularly in this one, where part of the plot, the reason why Dracula wants the Frankenstein monster is because he needs to somehow use the power that is contained within the Frankenstein monster to harness lightning to bring his children to life. And the idea is that baby vampires are born dead, but they're also born in these like alien egg sacs.
But they're also born.
They're also born, right? And there's this whole joke about just like, oh, this one man with these 3 beautiful brides, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have questions.
They have thousands over hundreds of years. It's like,
I have questions about how vampires reproduce here. Like, because the common thing with vampires is that vampires don't get pregnant. Vampires like make more vampires by biting more people, right? That's how you get more vampires. And so,
in the documentary series Twilight, yeah, Bella had to have the baby first before she could be turned into a vampire. Otherwise, the baby would have died. And for some reason, boy vampires can procreate, but girl vampires can't.
Which, I mean, we're not going to get into Twilight right now. That has its own series of questions. But this one, like, this is a I have never seen this version of vampire reproduction before, nor is it ever fully explained.
I would love to know what kind of acid trip brought this story around.
yeah, I was just like, okay, so I get that, like, okay, vampires are born would be like a naturally created, right? Vampire would be born dead. That kind of makes sense. Like, okay, they're dead. They would have dead babies, and then they would have to be brought to life. I get that part. The part that I don't get is how they produce these thousands, like you said, thousands of like egg sacs that they then hang in a cave that is like dripping this viscous liquid. And also the baby vampires are like they're like gargoyles. Like that's the closest that I can come to them. They're not at all, they don't have a human appearance at all, right? And
yeah, they're not beautiful people. Well, and also why was Dracula hanging on to these things for all these hundreds of years? Like, so that eventually he could meet Victor Frankenstein and have the technology to like zap them so they live?
I assume, yeah, I assume that the idea is that, like, you know, we're gonna have this big vampire army that will overrun everything, which tends to be when Dracula has nefarious like plans in these sorts of stories. Usually it's, I'm going to create a vampire army that will overrun the world, right? That's
which
like
also is just inherently stupid because eventually you're gonna run out of food.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are always a lot of questions about, but that's usually like Dracula's thing. This one is like, we're going to, you know, we're going to bring my children to life. And I was sort of like, you know what? Like, I think that you are unfairly persecuting this, you know, goth polycule who just want to have their babies.
Yes, exactly.
And
Dracula's just a dad who wants to, you know, he wants to be the dad that his dad wasn't.
And that's the thing, again, with this entire film, is that all of the plot complications, there's so many questions about them. Like, we find out that Dracula's father is actually like Valarius's ancestor. And again, we're not entirely so like, I don't know how Dracula happens. That's the thing. Like, you know, and it's so confusing and implausible. And then we get this whole explanation of just like, who's Van Helsing? Because Van Helsing has apparently lost all of his memories, except he can remember all these ancient battles.
Right.
And then we learn that, like, oh, he's Gabriel Van Helsing. It's like, okay, he's the left hand of God, right? Like, okay, so is he supposed to be like the angel Gabriel? Sort of, but not really. And we never get any further explanation of that one. And then finally, and I love this, I'd completely forgotten about this, but rewatching, I was like, I forgot that this is a thing that has to happen. The only thing that can kill Dracula is a werewolf. We don't know why.
Yeah.
We don't know why, but that's just the way that it is.
It's just the rules.
Yep. And so Van Helsing, of course, gets bitten by Anna's brother and is like transforming into a werewolf. And then he turns into a werewolf and he fights Dracula. And like, that's this whole thing. It's just completely nonsensical. Nothing that happens in this movie makes any degree of sense, and yet it just keeps on happening. There's so many battle scenes. There's like there's these weird ass little minions that Dracula has, and I don't know what they're up to either. I have no clue, like,
or where they are when they're not being used,
or like where they came from, why they are loyal to Dracula. Like, there's, again, so many questions. I need answers, Stephen Sommers. I need to know.
Do you? Or
I do.
Is it more fun to not have them?
and that's the thing. I'm sitting here going like, none of this is good. None of this makes sense. None of it fits. There's no connective tissue here. And yet I really, really enjoyed this movie. Every single time I watch it, I laugh, I'm entertained. I like, you know, notice something new. It's just like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why do I want to keep watching this?
Yeah, that's the thing. This is the kind of movie where it's not, I wouldn't even say it's so bad it's good. Although kind of, I guess, maybe, because it's not a good movie. None of this is good. It's just it's when you can just relax and settle into it, it's very watchable and very entertaining. It's yeah.
And I think some of it is like, if it was a better movie, it would be worse. Like in that sense, like if it was actually more coherent, it wouldn't be as entertaining. The very fact of its incoherence is what makes it entertaining. And that's true for a lot of these, movies that we describe. I think they're so bad they're good. Those, even films like The Room, or even some of the films we've talked about in the past with like the Hammer Studios films, some of like the Roger Corman films, a lot of them are like these aren't well made, right? But very often they are well acted, right? They do actually have good actors in them, and Van Helsing is no exception. A number of these people are actually good actors. And there's just there's like a pleasure in that. And there's a pleasure in watching these people work so hard and fail so miserably.
Yeah. Well, and like I know I already talked a little bit about where this falls, but for Hugh Jackman, he, like I said, his breakout role had been just a few years before with X-Men. And he had, by the time Van Helsing comes around, he had done 2 of those, but those are big ensemble movies. And so he, even though I would argue that he and his character were the biggest, like kind of became the big stars of those movies, and certainly Wolverine is the most standout character, and that kind of became his identity. But you can see early on that he was taking that fame and looking to see what else he could do. And so this movie is one of the first ones where he's really like the lead, the hero. He's not part of a team, it's him. And that didn't last, because now, well, and that's the thing, is like, if this had done better, what might have happened with his journey with the X-Men? Who knows?
It's a confounding thing, to be totally honest. Like, it needed to be way better for it to be good. Like that's part of it. It could, like I said, if this was just slightly better, it would have been worse. Like, it would have been a worse film.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny, because I'm honestly struggling to talk about this movie in an intelligent way, because I like it and it's terrible. Like, it's that. And I think that that's true for all of these bad films, is that there's this place that these movies hit that makes them so enjoyable, and yet you cannot pick it out. Can you say, is it good? No. Do you love it? Yes. Like even I was rating this on Letterboxd yesterday, and of course the ratings on Letterboxd are really low, and I was like, well, I can't rate this really low, even though it's terrible, but I love watching this movie. I love everything about it. This is great. And it's true for so many of these bad films. I've struggled in the past, actually, to talk to friends who don't get it, like who don't understand, like, why are you watching this if you think it's bad? It's like, because it's bad. That's why I'm watching it. Like, because it's bad. And it, like, who wouldn't want to see that?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about the ending. Spoiler alert to anyone who's not seen Van Helsing. We spoiled everything, of course.
But we have to talk about this ending.
But the ending is, and again, I'm like, I think I'm supposed to be emotional about this, but there's no possible way this is serious. So, Van Helsing fights Dracula, and Anna has a really, really homoerotic fight with like the last surviving bride.
And her hair stays perfectly curled,
and they both get wet. Like, it's raining and they're like soaked. You're like, okay,
sure, why not?
But she defeats the sexy vampire lady. Justice for Dracula's brides. Those women really deserve better.
They really did.
But in like the midst of all of this, Van Helsing, who's transformed into a werewolf to fight Dracula, then gets like the antidote, because Dracula had the antidote, which was imprisoned in a ice tower for some reason. in like a globule thingy.
Yeah, that freezes but also doesn't.
But also shatters and is a viscous liquid but isn't. And so Van Helsing like gets like Anna gets the antidote. She stabs Van Helsing with it, but in the process, Van Helsing as a werewolf kills her. And we're not quite certain how. It just kind of happened. She's dead. And he's upset because they had like a little romantic thing going on, which does not land at all. Like, it's just like, no, whatever's happening here, it's not that. And so we get this like burial because for some inexplicable reason, much earlier, Anna had got this wistful look on her face and talked about, I have never seen the sea. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's so out of nowhere. It's like, what?
It's just this random, like, I've never seen the sea. It's like, all righty then. And I feel like maybe somewhere in some iteration of the script, there was like a longer thing about why the sea is important. But all we really get is just that one line. But so he takes her to the sea to light her body on fire, as one does.
Yes.
And then we get what is truly one of the finest endings in cinema. Because the clouds part and the fire is burning and Van Helsing
like the funeral pyre.
Yeah, looks up into the sky and sees Anna with like her face in the clouds.
Yeah, it's like, just the clouds are her face.
Like Mufasa. Yeah. And like her family is there and they're all embracing her because they're all getting into heaven. And she's just like looking coyly away from Van Helsing. And he's like, okay, everything's okay, because all that Anna really wanted was to be reunited with her family.
She definitely did not want to sleep with Van Helsing.
And get into heaven. And it's all great, but it is so fucking cheesy. Like, it is the cheesiest. And again, it's like, what am I meant to do with this, right? Am I meant to understand this as like a really moving emotional moment, right? That doesn't land. Or am I meant to understand this as the cheesiest fucking thing I've seen? Like, which one is it? And it's both. Know. It's both because it's both, Karen. It's both.
I believe that.
And then Van Helsing and Carl is his name. They ride off to go on new adventures and hunt new monsters and stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't even know what else to say.
It was interesting though, because rewatching this film brought up all of those teenage emotions that I had. And to go back to your how did I think I was straight comment, I was obsessed with Dracula and his brides in this. And I truly don't know whether I wanted to be Dracula or whether I wanted to fuck Dracula or what was going on there, but I was really into Dracula and his brides.
Yeah. I can see that too.
Yeah. So yeah, but it did like bring up all of these like emotions, like this is terrible. And I've had this experience with so many films, and one of the most recent ones for me was Cats, when the Cats came out many years ago. Gosh. And I went to see this in a movie theater. And it was a fantastic, I've talked about it before, it was a fantastic cinematic experience because everyone in the theater was 100% on the same wavelength. We were all like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. But it was so similar in my experience of Van Helsing, where by the end of it, I am having an out-of-body experience almost. Like my soul is leaving my body because I am watching this thing happen that I feel like I'm supposed to care about, but I really don't. And yet is also incredibly funny at the same time. Mm-hmm. And Judi Dench, I'm never going to forgive you for looking to the camera and saying a cat is not a dog. That's when I fully had a breakdown in that movie. My roommate had to ask me if I was hyperventilating. Like, I could not handle it. And it's a similar experience to watching Anna ascend to the clouds. It's just like, what?
Yeah. She is a cloud.
It's like, okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. I love it.
So any final thoughts on the epic nature that is Van Helsing?
I accidentally renewed my Stars subscription for a year, and I feel like watching Van Helsing on Stars totally paid for it. That,
Oh, absolutely.
worth the money.
I still have my ultimate boxed set of
Nice.
Van Helsing DVDs, which include an entire DVD of special features.
Ooh.
And this was why I got the box set. And all 3 films of Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman.
Oh my gosh.
The original films, right? So I got the box set because I get 3 other films, all of which I love at the same time. So yeah, I believe that there is actually a audio. I remember there being an audio commentary that is Richard Roxburgh, Will Kemp, and Schiller Helmsley, who plays the Frankenstein monster. All 3 of them doing like an audio commentary on,
oh my gosh.
on this movie. And my memory is, I didn't rewatch it, but my memory is that they're very funny. They're very, like, they talk about, some of the prosthetics and the kind of incorporation, the action and the incorporation of like CGI and stuff like that. But some of it is just like, they're like, what are you supposed to be doing here? Like, just like, oh, this is the bit where you lose all of your skin.
Yeah.
So
you know what? There is something else I wanted to mention, and that is this movie was co-produced and, well, produced by and co-edited by Bob Dukesay, who has worked with Rian Johnson a bunch. Like, he was the editor for The Last Jedi and for the Knives Out movies, and anyway, a delightful person to talk to about these kinds of things. But I saw his name in the credits and I was like, wait a second. And then also I just wanted to mention, because I love my craft people. Alan Davio was the cinematographer. And he worked with Steven Spielberg. He shot E.T. That sounds terrible. He was the cinematographer on E.T.
He shot E.T.
Yeah. And he worked on, he worked on The Color Purple. He worked on Empire of the Sun. He had 5 Academy Award nominations. He also was the director of photography on Congo. That's a movie that didn't make it into this month's lineup, but maybe next time we do this,
yes, definitely.
we need to talk about Congo. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that also Alan Silvestri does the original score, and I just bring up some of those craft people because, like, there's some talent behind the scenes on this movie. So yeah, the fact that it came out looking the way that it does is partly why it's so wild.
Yep, definitely. So yes, highly recommend watching Van Helsing and seeing it again. It is on Stars. It is also on DVD in my house. But it's fun. Like, it just is. It just is. I do love this movie. It was a delight to watch it again. So I think that is going to close us out for this week. Next week, we are going to watch Hotel Artemis.
Yeah, we are.
Which I have not seen, so I am intrigued.
And you can come over to my house to watch that one.
I'm intrigued by Hotel Artemis, so we'll see what we think. And so, of course, as always, we want to thank all of our lovely patrons and everybody who listens to us. And our patrons do include Abby, Audra, Brian, Connor, Estefania, Ferdinand, Heather, James, Judy, Carriata, Matt, Michelle, MK, Monty, Nanina, Noel, Robert, Roxy, Steve, and Sharon. Thank you so much for supporting us, guys. Our Patreon is, of course, patreon.com/Citizen Dame. We are finishing up our watch of A League of Their Own, where we're doing bonus episodes. And we're going to be starting another one very soon as well. So keep an eye out for that. And also, if you are a patron, let us know what you want to hear us talk about. If there are things that you would like to see, we would love to do it. And of course, you can also shoot us some money, that's at our Ko-Fi. That's ko-fi.com/citizendame. And our website is citizendamepod.com. You can also get in touch with us via email. That's citizendamepod@gmail.com. And we are on Instagram and Blue Sky at Citizen Dame Pod and Letterboxd at Citizen Dame. And of course, you can get in touch with us individually. Karen, where are you?
I am on Instagram, Letterboxd and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson.
And I am on Instagram and Letterboxd at LH Business. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Have you no heart?
No! I have no heart! I feel no love! Nor fear! Nor joy! Nor sorrow!